Etowa, Tanse. My name is Heather Shillinglaw. I'm the Indigenous Visual Arts Programmer at the Art Gallery St. Albert. And I'm here with you today to create a project, a very fun project out of materials that you have right in your home. This is the project that we are going to be making together, and it is based off of a beading project using buttons and beads and this box of noodles that I had in my home, which is Kraft Dinner, that is now expired. To get the colors on the noodles, I have used many different materials. I used felt pens, crayons, and even oil pastels to kind of create the effect of the different types of colors. The background of the outside of it is actually a recycled material as well. So I have used, as you can see here, this is a t-shirt like material that I take and I cut it out of the arm of the shirt that I once had, and I folded it in half. So there's 2 layers, and then you fold it up, and now there's 4 layers. And it's kind of like a stabilizer because it's very thick and it's easier to hold in your hand and easier to sew. First step that we're going to be doing is you're going to take and draw it out, but you're going to tape it right down to a hard surface. So this could be done on your table, or it can be done on a board of some sort. And what you're going to do is you're going to draw out the image of the wild rose. So while you're going to be doing it, you're going to draw onto it. Now it might move around a bit because it is a t-shirt. And even though you've taped it down, sometimes it doesn't go down as hard as it can. So you're going to get the 5 petals. And then you're going to draw out the leaves, and then you're going to draw out the stems, and then in the center you're going to draw a circle for the center of the flower. Your composition is uniquely your own, so it won't look exactly like mine, and that's a good thing. You just want to get the image of the rose with those elements on there. Now the next step that we're going to be doing is we're going to take and we're going to attach the button. Now the buttons that we have, here's the button, and here's all the colors that I have in a sorter of all the colors that we're going to use to sew with. And I happen to have this sorter, but you can use like an egg carton as well. So the buttons that I have, I harvested off of a t-shirt that I once had. So there's the button. And the next thing you're going to need is a needle. Now the needles can be something that you have just out of a regular standard sewing kit. So this is like a repair sewing kit will work. So the first thing you need to check is if the noodle will go through it. So you're going to check to see if it'll go through it, and there's a good check. That'll work. Then you will need some thread. So you're going to pull out the thread. You're going to pull it off the spool about the span of an arm's width. Okay? Then you just cut it. And then you just take your thread and you run it through the hole. So you have to thread it right through the needle. And then you take the other ends of your thread, make it match it up end to end, and then we're going to take and we're going to knot it twice. This is what you do for any time that you need to add more thread. 1 knot and 2 knots. And it's the second knot is right over the same knot. Pull it taut so you can just check so it doesn't twist itself. And then you hold your finger like that. You put your bead on top of where the circle is, and then you just lightly hold on to it. From there and there, you run your needle right through the end, and kind of wiggle it through there, through the hole. You pull it so it's tight, and then run it through the other hole. See, so you come through the back side, and then you've got your first stitch. Now the next stitch that you're going to do is you're going to take and trace it with the yellowed beads. So this is just basically a standard color of the noodle. So then you take and see how it's curved. You actually want to take and cut it. Oh, there we go. I'm going to get lots of needles all over my floor, which is okay because art is messy. So I pull it through, and then I feed the noodle through the bead like the mock bead, and then I sew it through. So there we go. There's the first stitch, and then I'm going to come up to the next part, pull it through. I'm going to do one more stitch. My other bead went flying. It's actually helpful if you have like a little bowl or something that you can have it go into. There's my little bead there. And now I'm using my nail to kind of push it through. That's not really the best thing, but I've done a lot of beadwork, so I'm used to it. It's better if you have like a thimble so you don't hurt yourself. Now the cool thing is a curved, so you can put it curved sides. You can work with the curve of the noodle, and you push it through. And there you go. And then you keep going all the way around. Now the next part I'd like to mention is we're going to do an outline around the edge. So on the outline, I'm going to take one of my pink beads. Actually, I'm going to use a nice dark bead first. So this is a black color that I have. Feed it through the needle and hold on to it where you're going to stitch it. Hold the bead in place. It'll just help guide it. And then you poke it through. Now this is actually a cut bead that you're making every time. So see at the end of the bead, I'm feeding it through again. And I happen to have a pink one there, so I'm going to use a pink one. And I'm going to outline it. So you're following your design. The lines that you drew in, that's what you're going to stitch through and follow that whole line. Now the next step I'm going to show you is you take and you fill it in like a coloring book. So you're going to take all your pink colors and you're just going to keep adding more and then poke it through. You can follow that line, stitching through more red, more pink, kind of make a variance of different colors. It kind of adds to kind of a realistic effect of the flower. This is what I kind of call intuitive beading. So that means that there's kind of a plan, but you're working on colors, playing with the colors to make the rose. Okay, and this will be our last bead, and I'll show you what happens when you fill in the whole flower. So I'm just making, see, I've just kind of filled in that spot, and now I just take and keep filling in that one little area. Oh, nice curved bead, so I have to cut it. And then you can keep sewing and filling that area in. So I'm filling in this little square, and then I fill in that area. And then what happens is you get that kind of effect. So you filled in, so this is the darker areas, the reds, and then I vary with pinks and that sort of thing. this part here is now shown that we're going to go all the way around, and then you would do all the next neighboring petals. So then we get to this point where all the petals are now filled in. The center part is done, and next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the leaves. Now on the leaves, the center part there is a plain bead. So we're adding a little bit of drama to the center part. Oh, that's not going to work. I need to trim that a little bit. Oh, see, that's what happens. I got really old pasta, so it broke. And that's okay. It happens. Now when you're coloring, sometimes the colors of the beads that you use, either the oil pastels or the crayon or any of that, sometimes it rubs off just by the heat of your hands. So what will happen is you could just take and color it in later and just kind of embellish it. It kind of adds another way of drawing into the colors. So I'm going to start at the top of the leaf, and I'm going to follow that line. Oh, I'm going to trim that just a little bit. Because it curves, you have to kind of adjust the needle where you need to go. But it's kind of nice if you see on this curve part here, I can follow my line, and then I could fill it all in. So you're constantly hand sewing it and filling it in the green part, just like a coloring book. You could experiment with different styles of beading. When you're doing this, you could play with it and be like horizontal stitches only, or stick to a specific design when you're sewing. Certain beaders, they experiment with those kinds of designs when they're sewing. For me, I just kind of follow the lines, and that's where I'm a little different, because I kind of sew intuitively. As a matter of fact, I have this type of flower, one of my beaded flowers of one of my work, that I wanted to show you, because see this part here, this is what we call a bugle bead, and it's actually cut glass. So this is kind of the effect that we're going to be creating with the beads that we're cutting. So we're kind of creating our own bugle beads to fill into the space. And we're having fun with that. Now as we fill this green area, we just keep sewing more and more. I'm just going to do the one side, because the rest is just like what we did with the petals. We just kind of were filling in the space. So this little area, we would cut a bead and we'd fill in that space. So now we would get to this part. So on this part, you've got the branches. There's the branches, the stems. It's part of the design that you would take and you would sew that in. But now we could also do kind of the thorns, and I'm going to stitch that in as embroidery. So the nice thing about the thorns is that it's very random. Just like in nature, it just kind of, it's like thinking of drawing the line. Which way does the thorn go? Well, with the thorn, if you're picking the rose, it'll prickle you all over, because there are many different directions on the stem. So you're going to kind of replicate that on your stitching and making that effect. So I'm going one way, and then I'm going the other way, and so on and so on. So in this case, you see the stem, and there's the stitching. In this way also, I wanted to mention on the leaf, look at the patterning that you can experiment doing it that way, or you can just experiment with doing straight lines. So you can also build up the colors. Now another thing that I should mention, say you don't have the colors, it didn't come out strong enough, you could go back in and draw it. Previously, these were hand colored. So, and that's the full project. Have fun with it. Post your project back to the Art Gallery St. Albert. Thank you so much for joining me.